Hi everyone, it's Dibblee and I'm so excited to be here with you today. I'm the host of Frock Off Television. I also have with me my fabulous producer who I call our big brain. She doesn't like that, but she'll tell you that herself anyway. It's okay. That's Sue Ferrer, and you're going to meet her in a couple of seconds. And welcome back. You know, Frock Off Television is about being real and talking about things that matter. And our hope, especially if you're taking the time to watch us, that we inspire you. We bring you the best of the best, the women that are making a difference. They're stepping up and they're saying, I was tired of something or I was in need of something, and now I'm bringing my message to the world. So we're thrilled to have you with us again today. And I so hope that you're taking inspiration, and make sure you take notes, because there's always a tidbit of amazing information. So before we get going, because I do have a fabulous guest with us today, I'm going to introduce, as I lovingly called her, my big brain friend, and well, she is the producer, really. She is the reason Frock Off Television exists. She is the one that said, we got to get the message out to the world. So she's a big brain, she's a techie, and she's a dear friend. Sue Ferrer, tell them a little bit about yourself now, my dear.
Oh, all right, Joe, I will. Well, as Joe was just saying, I've kind of transformed my life from, you know, being a physician for about 43 years to now helping folks use tech to further their message. My friends have always said I joined at the hip with my computer, and I could never argue with them because they were right. But I know that the world is changing fast, and that if you have a message, the only way you're going to be heard these days is through video, is through the web. So that's what I'm providing, because a lot of folks, you know, they don't want to go there. They don't want to get involved in all of this stuff. So I provide an easy, simple way that you can promote yourself and take your message to 3 billion already and potentially 7 billion very soon on this planet. So that's me.
Wow, and thank you. And she does play it down a little bit, just so you know. But in terms of the numbers, those are accurate. So if you've got a message, you know, you got to connect with this woman. She's amazing. And I'm grateful for her allowing us to take Frock Off Television on a much bigger scale, because what I know for sure to be true as we work with people every day is that there are so many people out there with huge intention, and you know, they have calling, but they're stuck. And so it's important that we share and inspire each other. And on that note, our amazing guest today has inspired me tremendously. I'm a bit of a foodie. Now, I don't mean that in the sense of snobby. I just like food. So I don't know if that really makes me a foodie, but I like good quality food. I believe in nutrition. I believe in taking care of yourself. I believe in all those things. When I met this woman, I went from, you know, like, I had an awareness, and she makes food so much fun. Like, when she talks about stuff, I remember thinking, I love her personality. I love her generous heart, her kind soul, and she is on a mission to change and educate. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce my fabulous friend. And before I do, I forgot something almost. Don't do that. She's a co-author in Frock Off, Living Undisguised, the Freedom Edition. She has a chapter in here if you want to read that as well. And as I said, without further ado, Loretta Friedrich, can you please take it away? Tell us more about yourself, and sort of tell us a little bit about what a day in the life of a superhero, food, nutritional consultant, coach, but again, superhero looks like. What's that look like for you?
Oh, wow. Where is she? Oh, right here. Thank you so much. I first want to thank Sue for manning the board, so to speak. And Joe, it's a pleasure. What a team. The life of a nutritionist. Actually, why don't I say, I've been on a journey in the last, how many days? 80 some days. I started June 1st with a challenge, a 100-day, 100-mile challenge. Not everything on my plate to be local, but I'm very passionate about using what we have at our fingertips. So fresher, it's more fresh, it's more nutritious, it even looks better. And this runs till about September 8th. And so every day since June 1st, I've been creating recipes and using Instagram to post what I've been eating. And so pretty much that's been Loretta in Technicolor using my camera and putting it on Instagram. And I've been getting a lot of really cool response. So I've been eating more local or locally even before June 1st, but that's funny you should ask. That's really just been the pulse of my summer. I've just been so excited. It's just been keeping me moving this summer, and it's been so much fun. Yeah.
That's awesome. I love that. And I've been seeing some of your amazing photos. First of all, just the photo alone is enough to make you salivate. I mean, holy Hannah. Because you know, there was a day when you'd hear about nutritious food. It was, it felt more like cardboard. It wasn't exciting, but I'll tell you what, there's nothing dull and boring about what you're posting. And not just from a visual, but it's because you educate, and it's because you make it engaging and you make it fun. And really good quality food is delicious. And it's not just about that. It feeds your soul too, right? That's the difference. You know, it's not about, I hate to say this, but it's not about the Canada Food Guide, okay? It's about actually enjoying, because aren't we going to change and do something more if we actually like it?
Absolutely. And that's pretty much, while I am a food lover, I'm also wear a whole bunch of other hats. And first and foremost, as an educator, for years, even before I became a nutritionist, it's absolute desire for people to know that it's not all about what you eat, even though you hear you are what you eat. It's why and how and where and with whom. And that kind of leads me into my next big burning passion, and really has provided me clarification of why I'm doing what I'm doing. And that's about your food story. So that really ties in a lot to what you've been saying, Joe. It's not just what you see, even though we do tend to eat with our eyes quite a bit. And it needs to be looking good, because that's why there's the food porn, and that's why there's all kinds of, well, people out there. I was on Instagram the other day, and I'm looking and I'm going, I wonder if this even tastes good, because it looks good, but I'm wondering, okay, people, you don't use a filter. I want to see what it actually looks like and what does it taste like. So all of the senses, and holistically, it's that experience when it comes to, of course, the physical, like the taste and all the senses, but emotionally, spiritually, it's being fed right down to your core. And so that's why I decided to actually, when I was revisiting career changes, or because I was laid off from my previous career, I thought about going back into being a dietitian, because I was taking some courses to become a dietitian. Right. But quite frankly, I thought, not that I think I'm so old, but I just thought, oh, I don't want to go through that much school again. So I decided to take a 2-year diploma to become a certified holistic nutritionist. And then that's what really drew me in, though, Joe, is that it's that holistic approach to health. It's not just Canada Food Guide, even though that's a really good guide, but it's more than that. And that's what just gets me up in the morning. Totally.
I love your food story. I love that. That is awesome, because that is really what generates all of our stories. And you've heard me say this, I'm sure, many times before, about us standing on our story versus in our story. And if we have bad perceptions around something, you know, whether it's, you know, I can't have that piece of pie, if I joke about pie a lot, I can't have that because that's bad for me. Well, I'm twice as likely to crave it, right? And if I just had the damn piece of pie, excuse me for being frank, then I would feel, and I would also, instead of giving myself a hard time, why don't I just have my piece of pie? You know? So I think that's a really important point. And, you know, something, as you were talking, I don't know if you've seen the recent commercials about dietainment. and these young girls looking at magazines. And, you know, there's this little girl and she's looking at a magazine and she goes, oh, I can have a bikini body. I mean, she's 10, if she's 10, okay? I can have a bikini body in 1 week. And then another girl, well, and she's looking, are you ready for summer season? And she's looking at another little girl. And I think it is absolutely appalling what goes on. I mean, magazine covers are put at, you know, they're at the, what they call pad ends in supermarkets to drive you to buy them. And 9 times out of 10, it's lose this weight. And yet there's a piece of chocolate cake on there that's bigger than, you know, it's bigger than my body.
Yeah.
So there's this oxymoron going on, and we have had dietainment for way too many years, which is why we've had problems with our food stories have not actually been healthy for many, many years. I think if you look back, you know, on previous generations where, you know, they had to hunt for the food, gather the food, that kind of stuff.
Yes.
I call it, you know, you would probably have a totally different, but for me, I call it the strawberry shortcake syndrome. And here's how it is. When I was growing up, strawberries were available in June and maybe part of July, but mostly early June, and then they were gone. Well, strawberries by themselves, not bad for you, like quite good. You know, even if you eat too many, not too many things going to happen. But if you had strawberries, at Sunday, you might have strawberries, angel food cake, and whipped cream, okay? But you had it once a year.
Yes.
You didn't have it. Now today, I can go into my local grocery store and buy strawberries 12 months a year. So I can have, right? I can have that at any given time. And this is also part of the problem with what's happened and how our stories may have changed, in my opinion. I'd love your opinion on that.
Well, I totally agree. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. And we are totally pummeled with opportunity of everything, including food. And so when you read again, it's some more statistics on the Canadian or American and this weight crisis. And I don't want to just talk about necessarily overweight, because it's just a crisis when it comes to eating disorders, period. And I'm not a, I don't have that schooling for, like, there's eating psychologists, etc. So, but when it comes to, let's say, a strawberry or something that you know that there's only a particular season, I feel we should be asking ourselves, when is that best time to have that food and celebrate it? And have it in your, like, have it for 7 days in a row, have it for 14 days in a row, have a celebration, have your cake. And I speak to that in just a minute too, because having your cake, I feel like, well, eat it and don't feel bad about it. If it's every day, well, maybe that's a different issue. But seasonal eating for sure is something that I'm really, I have lots of conversations about with people in my office or one-on-one online. But then there's the northern climate. So I live in Edmonton, and it gets a little bit tricky in January, because then people say, well, what am I going to eat? I can't go forage in the bush because it's all under snow. So that's going to be my next challenge, Joe, is that when we come to these seasons, and you talked about the strawberry and really celebrating it, but what do we normally think of when it's winter or fall? We think of the squashes, we think of the stews, we think of this kind of thing. And our body actually is pretty much more craving that, if you will. It needs to be more warmed up. Then in the summer, it has more of these cooling foods. So if we're just a little bit more sensitive to the seasons, it's a triple win, because there's more nutritious, the body gets a break, there's a natural rhythm. We're probably going to tend to celebrate it a little bit more. And absolutely, that's just one comment on one little piece that you just said. But I'm really trying to be mindful, especially with this 100-day, 100-mile challenge, because everything I'm trying to have is absolutely in season. And sure, I picked summer, which is fairly easy to go even forage in the bush. But I want to take this further, because we're going to go through winter. What am I going to come up with?
I love that. And I'm gonna ask Sue to jump in, because her experience working in the medical profession, she's seen firsthand what happens as a result of a lack of understanding. But Sue, I'll let you speak to that, because I know you've got something to say about this.
How long have you got? I mean, I've as I said, I've been an anesthesiologist for 43 years. And over that time, I have witnessed day by day this increasing epidemic of obesity. And you're right, Loretta, there's nothing magic about it. It's too much. You're taking in more than you're burning off, and you're taking in the wrong kind of calories. And I think anesthesiologists of I don't think there's a profession or a group of people who understand the horrendous challenges of morbid obesity other than anesthetists, because we deal with it every time. And it is, I'll be honest, and don't want to offend everyone. This is just a straight fact. It's a nightmare. And I can remember that, and I did a lot of pediatrics at the Stollery in Edmonton. That's where I used to work. And I can remember the day, probably 25 years ago now, maybe not that long ago, maybe 20 years ago, where I called the preoperative ward and asked for the weight of an 8-year-old kid. And they said 56 kilos. That's about 120, 130 pounds. And I said, no, this is an 8-year-old. It should be around half of that, 28. And they said, no, 56. And that was only the beginning. Now we see 70 kilogram 5-year-olds and more. It's an unbelievable challenge. So everything you do, Loretta, I am totally with you, because, and it's sad because they talk about longevity. And in all honesty, there's only one little heart pumping around 2 people when you're that big, and they're not going to last. So we're going to have a divergence of longevity for those who keep fit, but not for those who are vastly overweight, and it's a real tragedy. Anyway, I could go on forever, so I won't. Yeah,
that is so powerful, and because you've seen it firsthand too. I know how passionate you are about that. And Loretta, clearly, because you work in this, and this is clear. I mean, it's so obvious that you're jazzed about what you do, and that's what makes you contagious. So, question I would have for you then. Was this, I know you mentioned that you went back to school, but were you always this way? Did you always have this feeling, or was there a transition point where you thought, you know what, I got to do something different?
I always say that I was, even before I was born, I was given this mandate, if you will, because I come from a family heritage of hardworking farmers and lovers of the land and people who did appreciate food. And even when I was in my former career, I was always reading about nutrition. I was always taking magazines to bed and reading about meal plans and recipes, much to my chagrin. It's 10 o'clock and now I'm getting hungry because I'm starting to read about recipes. But anyway, I can't remember when I was not interested in food, and not just necessarily the recipes, but just the fascination. And you may recall Joe and Sue with my presentation in Edmonton talking about increasing your health harvest. So on the topic of nutritional gardening and using the metaphor for really your body and growing, but taking now back to actually the garden. And every day, like when I go outside, and I'm just in awe of food. I just think it's beautiful, the whole food, the unprocessed food, the God-given food, that's unadulterated. And I just think it's such a treasure and a gift. And if we were more, if we could choose to just pay attention to what's in our plate and just go, wow, look at what we have here, and really take time to taste. We would slow down our eating, because then we wouldn't just shovel it in. And it's a celebration time. It's a spiritual time. It's a holistic time. So, but I wasn't always like that, Joe, because I call it an eating behavior problem, food behavior problem. And I wasn't 200 pounds overweight. I really never had a weight issue in that respect, but I came from a place like with a negative eating. I don't know if I should speak to that right now about a little bit my story of how I chose to be holistic. Okay.
Because to me, that's its own form of a frock, right? Because, and that's really what we get into is, is what, there's a time when something happens, and then there's a time we either continue on that path and don't, for lack of a better word, say heal and recognize that we have to make a change, or we do make a change and then our message, because then we become, for lack of a better way of saying this as well, evangelists for the need for change, right? So yes, absolutely, because to me that's its own frog.
I remember you first asking whenever I first met, and you weren't having a one-on-one, but you were speaking, and I was in the crowd, and you were talking about frocks, and I was thinking about my own frocks, and frocks, certainly one of them was fear. And with that, I tell you a little bit about my story when it comes to, and it's actually in the book, in here a little bit, that my dad passed away from a disease I feel that he probably could have avoided, and we could be enjoying him right now. And while you might have heard me just say that I came from a heritage of hardworking farmers and people who really loved the land and really respected food, here my dad passes away in his early 60s, really I think from malnourishment, quite frankly. And so this was a time where I already had children, and I was already a frantic mother, a fanatic mother, where my firstborn, when she came, she was a preemie, and I thought, I couldn't believe, firstly, that we were going to be blessed with a child because had miscarriage and things like that. And then I just thought, oh my goodness, this huge responsibility. So an ugly responsibility as a frock, that was a paranoia came upon me. And this child, I needed to monitor to the nth degree her eating. And then after my dad died, at the dinner table, I remember, though I just was asking my family again the other day, and they can't quite remember, but I remember this awful feeling of responsibility, and I need to give my people good food, whatever that meant, and I'm just about dying that they're not eating properly. And so it was from a negative place. And this was when I was a professional in my previous career. And then I speak to this in the book. I had this moment in the shower, and frocks are falling off, and I could speak to that a little bit more. But the thing is, I had a problem with food, and I was not, that's why I'm so passionate about people learning about their food story. And sure, the culture and the heritage, but then the why behind your eating. Why, and again, how and where, with whom. So I kind of went all over the board there, but that's just a little bit of a story of mine and some of the frocks that I had.
I've had the blessing of hearing you share, and also, reading your story as well, clearly. I think you got to the point where you were, for lack of a better way of saying this again, brought to your knees. And that's when change occurs. You'd had a number of different things, and it's tremendous responsibility to think you're responsible for everything everyone eats, for starters, okay? That's just, it's absolutely crazy. It's not even manageable to try and do all of that. But that being said, I get the whole sense of, I got to take care of, that's my job, I got to take care of the world. So, I mean, kudos to you for, I'm glad you came through that and survived, but I know that there was a point when you talk about being in the shower and what happened. Share a little bit about that, would you please?
Okay. This was actually on the heels of having kidney stone removal, a kidney stone removed. And I was just a mess physically, emotionally, spiritually, just really a mess. And clearly my spirit was crying out, and I was getting ready for work one morning, and I'm in the shower, and it just seems really funny when you think about it now. And some people will read that in the book and go, what? But anyway, what happened to me? It's my story. I can't change it. And it was as if my body was speaking to me, and I believe in a higher power, but it was my body speaking to me saying, why do you hate me so much? And then I'm looking around, and because I'm a spiritual person, I just thinking like, whoa, wait a minute. Maybe this is like a little bit of a hint that maybe God or something is talking to me saying, well, if you love me so much, why are you hating my creation, which happens to be you?
Mm-hmm.
And because I was loving everybody else, so like, love everybody, you know, everybody should love each other. And I really wasn't loving myself. And so honestly, Joe, it was like a lightning bolt hit me. Like, I swear, it was probably in the middle of winter, but I swear there was like a thunderstorm and boom, it hit me in the shower. And yeah, was I changed immediately? Oh, sure. I'm going to remember that moment for the rest of my life. I had work to do.
Yeah.
But because I recognized that I needed to change because I was so falling apart with this kidney stone removal, even though I know lots of people like, Joe, you lost a kidney because of cancer. But it was just these little pokes along the way saying, you got to make a change here, honey, because no one else is going to do it for you. And so that was the beginning. That was really the beginning of change for me. And I fell in love with myself again because I had identity issues too. I had all these frocks of,
But what's
anyway.
not to love? What's not to love? Seriously, you know, and even, you know what I would even say, because we've known each other for a shorter time, you know, just actually under a year, really, I think, or maybe just coming on a year now. And, you know, the truth of it is, I even see a change from that person I met, which is awesome because we should all be evolving all the time. And I would hope that people would see that for me as well. And look at the changes and the confidence that we all gain when we step into our life. Like I talk about standing up and stepping fully into your life and the changes. So if you were going to give our viewers one thing that they could do, they could start applying immediately in their life to see some change, what would that be?
Validate whatever feeling that you have. This is how I looked at it. Your body is going to be telling you all kinds of it's going to give you a lot of pokes, I call it. And so listen, stop and listen, pause. It's extremely hard to pause. And so when I'm saying this, I do this every day. So that's what I'm telling everybody, that stop. And not just, well, yeah, breathe, obviously. We don't want you to die, but stop and then listen, because your body is going to be telling you, your spirit's going to be telling you. And then once you recognize that, validate it, and then you're going to be able to move forward with change. Because that's actually the first step of change, is that when you're listening to those cues. And so stop, give yourself permission. You're not the savior. I'm sorry, you're not. I thought I was for my family, even though when I think about it now, wow, I guess I did. But to stop. And you've got 5 minutes, at least 10 minutes, whatever. You don't even have to get into like meditation and all that if you don't want, like you don't. Just stop. So you can clear out the noise, go to a quiet spot, and I dare you to listen, because there's going to be something telling you how to move forward. I dare you.
That's very, very good advice, because I can tell you, when in my old world, there was no stopping, Joe. It was full steam ahead, no quiet time, no quiet space, fall asleep with the TV on, because then if I was quiet, I would hear, and I would hear things necessarily that I didn't like or I was scared of or whatever, right? So that is amazing advice. Thank you for that. I'm going to bring Sue in before we're finished off, but Loretta, I so appreciate what you're doing, and you know, I love your enthusiasm. I love how committed you are. And I know how important your message is. And as I said, I'm going to bring Sue in, but I want to thank you for sharing your wisdom and your genius, for being part of our membership, being part of 12 for 12, sharing your story in the book. And I know that there are many more great things to come. We're going to be including contact information. I know you've got tons of recipes that people can go and see. So make sure you check out Loretta's blog and get involved and get engaged. And you know, I love that whole food story thing. So you're going to keep us in the loop as to when you're going to be coming out with that. And Sue, I'm going to ask you to say some final parting words before we sign off. But again, Loretta, I so appreciate you. Thank you.
welcome. You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, I mean, I'll come back to you, Loretta, again, but I really appreciate it too. For me, one of the biggest tragedies I've seen over the years is a mother who's too big to be able to play with her children, or a child who's too big to play sports or even ride a bike. And I've seen that increasingly. And what you're offering is the solution to that. Now, I know it's mindset stuff, but what you've just said about stopping and listening, and I think that the tragedy is that a lot of those folks can't stop and listen because they don't want to hear what it's saying. And that is, it's a tragedy. It's a tragedy for the mother, and it's a tragedy for the child. And I just think, keep going, Loretta. Keep going, love, because your message is mega needed. And kudos to you. And it's been just a pleasure having you and chatting to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
It is amazing. And you're so right, Sue. It is exactly what is needed. And so, you know, again, thank you to our viewers for being here today, for taking the time, and make sure you connect. As I said, Loretta's information is here for you. Do something for yourself. Get present. Take that time. And, you know, there's an old saying, the teacher teaches what she needs to learn. I definitely was one of those people, and by the sounds of it, I love that Loretta shared that she was too. And so those are the people that are making the biggest inroads in our world right now, is they're stepping into what has happened and they're being the change that they sought themselves. That's amazing. And, you know, what Sue was just talking about, Maya Angelou has a fabulous thing, and I say it quite often because we're so quick to beat ourselves up, but when we know better, we do better. And I love that you challenged us to get present and listen. And Sue, you're so right. At first, it's hard for us to do it, but the rewards are there. The rewards are there. So again, thank you again for taking the time to come and spend with us today. Thank you, Loretta. Thank you, Sue. And we're going to sign off now, and have a fabulous day, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.